Alright, quick update. My schedule freed up, so I'm going to be making more videos. Now let's step to it. Thrones of Britannia. A Total War Saga game. Yada yada yada. Let's cut to the chase. You want to know if I recommend it. Okay, long and short of it is this. I like it, and I think it's pretty solid. I like a lot of the new gameplay improvements. I also really like the time period too. A lot of the problems that have been around with the Total War games since Rome 2 have finally been attempted to be fixed. Some well, some not so well. If you've been following my channel since Three Kingdoms was announced, you probably know that's my favorite era in history. What a lot of people don't know about me is, I also really like the Viking Age. So that being said, I picked up Thrones to see what I might be in for when Three Kingdoms rolls around. First, I like the choices of factions here, and they all have different gameplay mechanics that augment them. For instance, I played as one of the Viking Sea Kings, and my goal was to earn tribute. By conquering lands and earning money through diplomacy, the better I did, the more my income increased. At the same time, if I sacked settlements and improved my generals, I earned points towards sending an expedition to settle far-off lands and earn some more cash. It was pretty cool as I received news that my fleets reached the shores of Iceland and Greenland and even Vinland. Other factions are unique as well, like the Irish one is based around being able to unite all the other Irish factions into one big Irish faction or something like that. And one of the great Viking armies, Northumbria, for instance, gets missions to avenge the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok. It's pretty neat, and it makes factions stand apart more, as the AI does try to fulfill these conditions as well, though in my experience, it's a bit of a Rome 2 situation where some of them are a tad outmatched by their neighbors and, never quite make it to the glory phase. I also like the new system of how you handle family members and nobles. If one of them isn't a general leading an army, you can set them to be a governor of a province, even if you don't own all the territories in the province. I imagine that's probably what Three Kingdoms is going to be like. You get to make sure you keep people loyal to you though. And there's plenty of ways you can do that. You gotta make sure that, number one, they don't become more influential than your king. And you can do everything from, tone down their influence by doing bad stuff, to awarding them estates to secure their loyalty. You can bribe them, you can flat out torture them into being loyal. But you gotta be careful, as everything kinda has a counterbalance to it. So you have to really weigh the pros and cons of what you decide to do. I like it a lot. Like, for instance, my king's brother's son was disloyal, so I tortured him into being loyal. That led to him conspiring against me, so I paid him off. But then he attempted to usurp my authority, so the game gave me the choice between having him assassinated or losing some of my king's influence permanently. I chose to have him killed because he was pretty useless, but I can easily imagine situations where that might result in a real dilemma. Like if that was the guy you really wanted to be your faction leader someday. Or if that was like one of your best generals. It was pretty cool. The only problem I really have with it is that the game doesn't really explain a lot of it to you. So you gotta bash your head against the wall and figure the system out while you play. It was driving me nuts at first because I couldn't figure out why people were disloyal, why this guy's influence was higher than my king's, how that guy was a governor but he wasn't, why I couldn't make my son a governor. But, once I figured it out and kind of understood what everything meant, I have to say I found myself enjoying it immensely. And I couldn't wait to see what political drama would unfold next. It was like watching an episode of Vikings, back when Vikings was good. Now, let me talk about the things I'm more iffy on. And there's a few of them. First, recruitment's been overhauled. When you recruit units now, they don't take turns to train or anything, you just recruit them. Boom, there they are. But they aren't full numbers, and if you really want a proper army, you still gotta wait a bit of time to match your strength, so there's a good level of balancing to it. This does a lot of good things for the game and fixes some major issues I felt have been a problem ever since the switch to generals recruiting units directly. So, first of all, it certainly makes the game faster. It's nice, you don't have to wait around for years as your units train in batches of 3 at a time anymore. Now, you want an army? You got an army. It's not a full army, but it can get the job done. It's useful for if you need an emergency force in a pinch, so you don't have to wait around for multiple turns watching enemies ravage your lands while you get together a militia. Armies can only be recruited in your settlements or when your general is fortified, which makes sense, usually. It's when it gets paired with some other odd functions of the game that it gets a bit wonky. You'll see what I mean in a bit. Now, another thing that's gone is every settlement having a garrison. Good riddance, I say. Now, only the provincial capitals have garrisons. One thing I've always hated about garrisons since Rome 2 is it slowed the game down to a boring halt. Every place had the same exact garrison. It was always the same exact battle. Your garrison always sucked, so defensive battles were almost pointless. Trying to capture a settlement usually meant the enemy's army was always nearby, so you'd always be facing 2-to-1 odds, and ugh, that's all gone now. Instead, you capture minor settlements by simply invading them, and you'll be met with no resistance while you occupy or sack them. Major settlements, you'll still have to siege and face a garrison, and yeah, it's the same garrison for every city. So boring. I usually just auto-resolve my sieges now. The AI does way better than I would anyway. They always lose like 2 guys. I don't even know how they do it. Anyway, the minor settlements being so easy to capture, nice on paper. In practice, well, there's some issues and it makes the game not make sense sometimes. If I had to pick a word to describe the negative aspects of Thrones of Britannia, in my opinion, the word wouldn't be bad. It would be silly. So for instance, it's pretty easy to steamroll opponents now because they can't defend everywhere at once, and it's also pretty easy to get steamrolled yourself, and maybe I'm just bad, but I got caught off guard pretty often as the AI would just waltz in from out of the fog of war and occupy my territory. Of course, I was doing the same thing with them, but it gets even funnier. Alright, so watch this. One thing the AI likes to do is recruit a general. Just a general, then send them to occupy your minor settlement. Then, they raise an army in your settlement. It's just kind of funny when you think about it. The general? He isn't even a full unit. He's got like 6 guys with him. Then he walks up into this village and declares himself in charge. Please, like there wasn't 7 able-bodied men in that village to defend it. Actually, there was. And you know how I know? Because the asshole then proceeds to recruit an army in my settlement, the one he stole from me. Watch as he jumps from 1 unit to 13, just like that. Where'd all those guys come from, mate? Them guys from my village? Them the same guys who couldn't defend it when you showed up with your 6 homeboys? Like, if it was just a proper army with a couple of units, then I could understand, but 7 guys? That's it? That's all it took? It's just silly. Another thing I find silly is the animations in the battles. I know I've barely touched on the battles, but honestly, there really isn't much that's different. Unit collision seems better, cavalry seems useless in this game, and it also seems like skirmish mode activates way too early. That's pretty much it. But aside from those, the animations are just funny. Like, look how these guys are marching, right? You'd think the enemy is right in front of them and they're closing into battle, ready to charge at a moment's notice. Nope, they're actually all the way over there. Oh, and don't even get me started at those big, mean, scary berserkers and how they run. Battles are kind of quick, unfortunately, too. But it might also just be the difficulty level I'm on. I'm a pleb who plays on normal unless it's medieval too. Other than that, though, I never ran into any problems with the battles themselves. In fact, my whole time so far has been pretty bug-free. I'm sure they're out there, and I'm sure some people are having problems with them, but anecdotally, I haven't run into a single bug yet. I haven't tried online. I've never been a multiplayer guy. I play Total War for the single-player experience. I know, I'm weird. So I don't know how the netcode is at all and what matchmaking is like. You're gonna have to look elsewhere for that. Sorry. Bottom line, it's a good game. We've come a long way from the disaster that was Rome 2, but the long road of recovery isn't over. There's still some hiccups these games need to address and figure out. They tried, but with every new try, there's always a new fail, right? So here's my verdict. If you're like me, and I've been kind of skipping out on some of the Total Wars since Rome 2, and you've been looking to get back in because it's been a while, or you want to get ready for 3 Kingdoms, I think Thrones gets the job done. If you've been playing every Total War since, and want to know if you can skip this one, yeah, it's pretty skippable. Unless you want to really experience some of the new, silly mechanics for yourself. then there's not much here that you haven't experienced before. If you really like the Viking Age, especially concerning the British Isles, then this is the best Total War has ever done with the time period. Then again, it's really only competing with Viking Invasion, but still, it's better. And I'm not knocking Viking Invasion, by the way, that shit was the OG game for me. Thrones is currently going around for $40 or so on Steam in the US. I think if you're really into the setting and the franchise, it's worth it. If you're more of a casual Total War player, or you're looking for a strategy game to keep you busy for a while, I say wait for a sale. Final score? An arbitrary number out of a larger arbitrary number that places the game somewhere between decently good and quite good, but not higher or lower than that. Thank you and have a good day. Subscribe.